All right, welcome to episode 38 of Life is Horror. This will be the horror sequel episode. Got my Friday the 13th part 2 shirt on here to celebrate. We're going to talk about some part 2s in this episode. BirdBox 2, The Nun 2, and a couple of older part 2s that I just saw recently, Firestarter 2, and 30 Days a Night part 2, which I didn't know existed until recently. And I'm going to talk about a couple of 2023 films that are from Norway. The movie called Nightmare on Shudder, I believe, and Leave. So, and at the end, I will quiz you guys on horror sequels. And just so you know, I have done in the past rankings on horror sequels. I did the top 10 horror sequels that are better than the original, and top 10 horror sequels that are better than the original part 2. So I did two of those videos. And I also went through a series where I did like ranking the entries where I did like the top 10 part 2s, but I not really it was like I chose 10 franchises and I ranked the 2s and then I ranked the 3s of those 10 franchises. For some reason I chose 10 only. I kind of limited myself with those rankings, but I did those, so if you want to check those out, they're available. I went all the way up to part 10s when there was only like 3 movies to choose from. And so, yeah, this will be the sequels episode. So, some horror news topics, things that have been announced recently. Saw 11 is happening, but the writers of Jigsaw, Spiral, and Saw 10 are not coming back for Saw 11. They haven't announced who's going to replace them, but it is happening, and they already greenlighted the movie and greenlit, I should say, and it's coming out this September, but we don't know who's writing it or who's directing it yet, or if Tobin Bell is returning. But I would hope that it's going to continue where Saw 10 left off. And Lee Winnell, who started the Saw franchise, he is directing another Universal monster movie, The Wolfman. He directed The Invisible Man back in 2020. Now he's directing The Wolfman, and that's supposed to come out sometime this year in October. And they're currently casting for that. I forget who they just announced was casted for that, but yeah, so that's in the works right now. Should be coming out this year. Orphan 3, a movie that I did not expect to turn into a trilogy. Orphan, a movie I love. 2 years ago now, Orphan First Kill came out 2022. Thought it was all right. Unnecessary movie, but it was all right. But now we're getting an Orphan 3, so it would have to take place in between the prequel and the original, or before the prequel. I'm not sure what they're gonna do with that, but I heard that William Brent Bell, who directed the prequel, is coming back to direct part 3. So that's happening. I'm not sure if I talked about this in the episode before, but Christopher Landon has exited the project of Scream 7. He was quoted as saying that this dream project turned into a nightmare, and because of what's going on with all the cast members leaving one by one, he's decided to step away from the project himself. So now we don't know who the hell is going to direct it. They have to rewrite the whole script because the two main girls are not coming back, so without them you can't just write them out and focus on the two twins. So now they have to scrap it, start over from scratch, and I'm excited about that because I think the last two movies were trash in my opinion. But now we can start from scratch. Let's start over. Don't bring back Sydney. Let's just start over. Whole new cast, better actors. I don't think Sam's a great actress, so let's just replace her anyways, regardless of what she's saying on Twitter. I don't care about all that crap. Just start over, all right? Or just don't make any more movies, because this franchise, it doesn't need any more movies. Bendy, the video game. Bendy and the Ink Machine, I think is what it's called. That like PC game. I played the first one way long ago. I don't remember much about it. Kind of looked like Mickey Mouse a little bit, the animation. I don't know, but that video game is now becoming a movie because I guess Five Nights at Freddy's was so successful. Wish they also announced the sequel to Five Nights at Freddy's with Josh Hutcherson returning for that. So look out for that in the next couple of years. But yeah, now we're getting more video game movies, and Bindi and the Ink Machine is becoming a movie also. And speaking of Mickey Mouse, so Steamboat Willie is now public domain, just like Winnie the Pooh, and that became a horror movie. Now we got all these, Steamboat Willie movies that are horror films. They're capitalizing on this thing becoming public domain. So now they like the day after it became public domain, they announced that they are making a Steamboat Willie slasher movie, and it looks horrible, just like Winnie the Pooh. Blood and Honey looked horrible. Wish is getting a sequel coming out this year also. I did not see the first one. I do not plan to see the second one. They look like trash. And last but not least, Robert Rodriguez has announced that he's producing a remake of his film from 1998, The Faculty. So, yeah, that's interesting. I was not expecting that movie to ever get remade, but yeah, I'm curious. I'll check it out. I like The Faculty. I think that's a pretty good movie. I prefer it over the other movies at the time that were coming out. All the Scream influenced meta, self-aware movies. This one was very like sci-fi self-aware. They always made a bunch of references to other sci-fi movies in The Faculty. I prefer The Faculty over Scream, which Kevin Williamson also wrote The Faculty. Yeah, I reviewed it on this channel, so check out that review. All right, now let's get into, I guess, the reviews. Let's talk about, I got 6 movies to talk about, so let's get into it. All right, let's talk about this. All right, so Marionette, this has probably been up the whole time, my bad. Was this visible the whole time? I'm supposed to bring it up now. All right, let's pretend like that was never there before. Now it's there. All right, what does it say? Mariette? All right, well, translate that to Nightmare. That's what it's called in English, Nightmare. This is a Norwegian film. Got widely released last September. And let's read the plot synopsis for The Nightmare. It's a Norwegian film. It's about a woman who's plagued by constant nightmares after moving into a large, suspiciously cheap apartment. The apartment's terrible secret soon reveals itself through her dreams. All right, so this movie is somewhat confusing toward the end. Psychological, supernatural horror movie about a dream demon that like rapes women at this apartment building and every night tries to impregnate them to be born into our world. So it kind of reminded me of Dream Child, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5. It's pretty much the same premise as that movie, if I'm not mistaken. He's trying to get born into our world through Jacob, Freddy Krueger. In this one, you got a similar thing going on. Uh, you know, and the acting was good. The lead actress is gorgeous. And I had a few chuckles at some unintentionally funny scenes. And a guy beats himself to death with a hammer. It's about as violent as the movie got. That's about all the violence you get in this. The visual effects of the demon at the end looked weird, and the ending is ambiguous. It is either the darkest ending of the year or just a typical dark ending where the antagonist is still looming. Is still a looming threat that has yet to be defeated. So the way this movie ends, it's kind of shocking, but it's also like you can interpret it in one or two different ways. Like, is this really happening, or is this like another nightmare? But I won't spoil what exactly is happening. But if it is what I think it is, that is some dark, dark shit there. The movie overall is forgettable, though, not scary or interesting throughout. The only dream demon I want to see in a horror movie is Freddy, because he at least has a voice and a personality. This demon in the movie does not look interesting. He doesn't talk. It's not scary to me. This dream demon just kind of rapes women off camera and imitates the appearance of their boyfriends. Yeah, he's kind of like a body, shape-shifting demon. But overall, it's just a fine movie. It's just forgettable, so I wasn't too crazy about it. It's kind of on the longer side. It's like an hour 45 minutes, I think. Kind of long, but so yeah, I wouldn't recommend this one. It was fine, well made, but just not that interesting to me. Not scary. So Nightmare, 5 out of 10, 2.5 out of 5. Let's move on to Firestarter 2. Let's talk about this one. So just bought this movie on DVD for pretty cheap, and my mouse is lagging. All right, hold on. All right, so yeah, I did not know this movie existed until a few months ago. And then I bought it, checked it out. It's a TV movie, so it's almost 3 hours long, like the original It miniseries is another Stephen King miniseries made for the Sci-Fi Channel, and it kind of has that made for TV look and feel at times. But I enjoyed it overall. I thought it was okay. And it's a sequel kind of, but feels more like a reboot. I was kind of confused at times. Like, is this really supposed to be the same character? Is this continuing, or is it just starting over? Like, what year is it in this movie? I was kind of confused about the timeline and stuff like that, so I wasn't sure if it really was a sequel. I mean, it's called Firestarter Rekindled, so maybe it's not a sequel. I don't know. It could be a sequel, maybe it's a reboot. Who cares? You got random like black and white shots to like be stylish, I guess. Like the flashback scenes are done in black and white, and she like gets when she gets horny. I thought it was funny that she gets really hot, literally. Like she emits like fire. Like when she's on top of a guy, she starts burning the dude as she's having sex with him. So that was pretty funny. And even though she knows this will happen every time she tries, she still keeps trying. You know, she's like, maybe this time it won't happen. But the next guy she tries to screw, she ends up getting extremely hot and burning the dude. So she just keeps trying. Yeah, but it's like she gets so hot that the whole hotel room starts to melt around her, but yet the guy doesn't notice it at first. Like, if she's that hot, wouldn't he be the first one to notice? Wouldn't his dick be on fire? But everything around him, like, I forget what was like melting, but there's things in the hotel room melting, but he's not noticing anything for a good while, which was just unbelievable. Malcolm McDowell from the Halloween remake and all kinds of movies, but Malcolm, he's in this as like the lead antagonist. He's the George C. Scott of this movie, and he's like half burned, like Loomis. He's got some like burn makeup on half his face, and it keeps changing throughout, just like Dr. Loomis in Halloween 4. And there's one unnecessary flashback that provides like no information, and it just breaks up the flow of the scene, and it, like flashbacks to things that just happened within the last 5 minutes. It's like, is this really necessary? There's a lot of flashback storytelling in this movie. um yeah, just like literally it'll just flash back to things that were said 2 minutes ago. It's like, I don't need to be reminded of what just happened. You got a group of like superpowered children in this. One of those kids would go on to be in the Hills Have Eyes remake. I recognized him. How is it that Charlie and the one kid who can like absorb fire through his skin, they both have clothes on that are fireproof? It's not like Mr. Fantastic or one of the Fantastic people. They like build a suit that can like, it's like fireproof. It's like they ignite and everything's like on fire around them, but their clothes never burn. It's like, I'm putting too much logic into it, maybe. I don't know, but I was just thinking about that when watching it. It's like, how are their clothes still on? It doesn't make any sense. Why would Lot 6 hire people who aren't in the know of what's happening to like track down Charlie and the others? Like, why would you do that? Yeah, I think there's a situation where one of the people wasn't in the know, so he got shot in the head by the other guy who was in the know. It's like, why didn't you just tell this guy beforehand? Make sure he was on board. Like, it's just so stupid. You got Dennis Hopper in this movie who can like see the future, and he has to convince her to save Vincent. And you got a mortician who doesn't seem to know how to properly perform an autopsy in this movie. Like, I'm not a mortician, but I'm pretty sure what he was doing was incorrect. And why did the kids let Charlie and Vincent go? It just seems so out of character and forced at the end. They just let her go. The subplot with the FBI and the woman who you thought was dead helping them, it goes nowhere. There's a subplot in this movie that you could have easily trimmed out of this. The whole subplot with that woman who like kills herself, but then she wakes up at the morgue. It's like, it went nowhere. Yeah, she kills Malcolm McDowell with a fiery kiss. You got a lot of cougar, like animalistic growling sounds for the fireballs. It was a weird choice for sound design. When the fireballs were flying through the air, it sounded like an animal. And, and that's all I gotta say. Like, this movie was fine. Not the best movie, but still somewhat enjoyable. It didn't drag that much for a like 3 hour runtime, so I would recommend checking it out. All right, 30 Days Tonight. I just got done watching this movie. Didn't know this movie existed until like the last year or two. Been pushing it off. It just seemed like because no one talked about it, I just figured it was going to be trash. But going into it, and watching it, it was surprisingly not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be really cheap, but it's not that below budget, and it's got a lot of action in it. Not a whole lot, like compared to like something like Blade, but it felt like that it was trying to be that. If this movie felt like it was trying to be like one of the Lost Boys sequels or Blade, it was more action oriented than like horror. It's kind of like going from Alien to Aliens. 30 Days a Night, the original, was more scary, more intimate, more drama, more horror. This one was more like, we're on a mission, we're traveling, we're gearing up, and, there's lots of guns and all that shit. So this one's more like action. And I like the opening sequence. She's like giving this speech, and at first I'm like, what are you doing, you idiot? Like, she's telling everybody what really happened at Alaska in the first movie. Like, we were attacked by vampires. And I'm like, this is stupid. But then she's like, she suspects that there's vampires in the crowd, so she's warning them like, I got UV lights rigged in here. I'm about to flip the switch, so if you're a vampire, leave. And then she flips the switch, and there's like two vampires in there that start like melting and shit, and everyone's like panicking. I thought that was kind of a cool opening scene. I didn't expect that. I was like, now that's how you open a movie. That was pretty funny. But then the rest of the movie, you just got this group of vampire hunters. It's like John Carpenter's Vampires, Lost Boys sequels. They're just out hunting these vampires, and there's a little bit of gore here and there, some decapitations, and they try to change it up this time, tonally, and the lead antagonist is now a woman vampire instead of a man vampire in the first one, and it does pick up after the first one. They do have footage of the first movie cut into the movie at times, kind of like opening recap, like a Friday the 13th sequel. Voiceover narration, that shit at the beginning. They do show the end of the first movie, so it does pick up right after the first one. Then they kind of flash forward 10 months, and then she falls in love with another man, and then there's a forced sex scene. It's like, would they really be fucking at a time like this? Shouldn't they be more like focused on their mission? But whatever. I guess they're thinking, we're about to die probably, so let's have sex anyways. And they have that one woman in the group who's just there to create conflict. She's always kind of like bad mouthing the other girl in the group. Like, I knew this was a bad idea. And she's kind of like always fucking things up for them. She was kind of annoying. And of course, the black guy dies first. So there's that trope. Um, they shoot one vampire in the face like 30 times. It felt so like unnecessary because like the vampires in these movies, they can die by regular bullets. They never say in the movie that they're using like special like silver bullets or anything. It's just regular ammo. They just shoot them in the face and they're dead. But they shoot this guy in the face like 30 times. It's like, okay, that's excessive. Come on. That was kind of funny watching it. This movie introduces. I'm not sure if this is in any other vampire movie. I've seen over 90 of them, and I've never seen this before. They can actually resurrect dead vampires with blood. So even if you kill them, expose them to sunlight, stake through the heart, doesn't matter. If you just pour any blood in their mouth, they resurrect. And they only throw that in here towards the end so that at the very end they can do something with that. I won't spoil what in case you want to watch it, but they do something with that. Which speaking of that, the ending I thought was horrible. I did not like the ending of this movie. All right, so yeah, I'm dealing with some shit here. I got all these like ads popping up. Sorry, I'm trying to click out of them. All right, so BirdBox 2, Barcelona. So this is set in Spain. So it's a subtitled movie, and let me see if I can find it. All right, so the sequel to Bird Box, which I believe came out like 2018, I want to say 2018 or 17, came out about 5 years ago. So after a mysterious force decimates the world's population, Sebastian must navigate his own survival journey through the desolate streets of Barcelona as he forms uneasy alliances with other survivors, and they try to escape the city. An unexpected and even more sinister threat grows. And this is on Netflix. So was the first movie. The first movie I saw once back when it first came out. I don't remember a whole lot about it. I think I enjoyed it. Definitely more than this movie. I just thought this was kind of like a mediocre sequel that doesn't really add a whole lot to the story. Doesn't It's kind of too long also. The main character is a seer, meaning he can walk around no blindfold on and not kill himself, but he goes around taking other people's blindfolds off to like free them and save their souls. So it kind of makes me hate his character, but he's supposed to be the one I'm following and rooting for. They try to give him this arc at the end where he stops doing that shit. But it's like by that point, I'm already like, fuck you. You've already killed this many people by taking their blindfolds off. The suicides in this are the only moments of like genuine horror. The way some people kill themselves is kind of horrific. And the CGI fire looked bad. It's a rather repetitive movie. We never see the creatures or learn what they want exactly, what this supernatural like entity is that's making them kill themselves. It's well shot, and the sets and locations are good. I kind of liked how they made us think the first group at the bus station was going to be like our main group that we would be with throughout, but nope, they're only in the movie for a few minutes. Uh, yeah, and the acting was good, but this movie just wasn't for me. I don't know, I just wasn't really that into it. So, um, if you're a big fan of the first one, sure, check it out. But if you thought the first one was just okay, I can't imagine you thinking this is like miles better. But so just if you're not crazy about the first one, skip this one. Um, like I said, I kind of like the first one, but this one I was just very meh on. It was just very blah. So another 2.5 out of 5. It was fine, but it's just not something I would ever watch again. So number 2 is Leave. This is the other Norwegian film that I think was streaming on Shudder at some point. It's got widely released back in like March of 23. So a woman goes to Norway looking for her birth mother to find out why she was abandoned in a cemetery wrapped in satanic markings. Meanwhile, she has visions of a burnt woman and nightmares as soon as her journey begins. At the beginning of this movie, we see a newborn baby at a cemetery. A cop rolls up, picks the baby up, adopts it, takes care of it. And then, she grows up to learn about her history and wants to go find out what the hell happened, why she was left at a cemetery, who her mother is. So she goes to Norway. This has some actors from the other movie I was just talking about from Norway, Nightmare. And the lead actress is supposed to be an American, but so often has a foreign accent, which threw me off. She sounds like she's from Germany. The supernatural element to this movie just seemed a little unnecessary. The story is just kind of generic. The like antagonist of this movie, he's like the most cliche religious nut who's like, he thinks that what they're doing is God's work. But what they're doing is just murder. And so yeah, it just has a bunch of religious stuff in it, religious idiots doing shit. The Norwegian Bill Skarsgård guy. I thought this guy kind of reminded me of Bill Skarsgård, who's also I think it's the same guy from Nightmare, and I thought he was just ridiculous. His character, he was just kind of like over the top, this entitled like psycho. Her father somehow breaks out of a psychiatric hospital to save the day at the last second and can't even kill a guy with a hammer properly. So a bit of a spoiler there, but whatever. Like, it's just this movie's so bad. I did not like this movie. I do not recommend this movie. Um, it's constantly raining in Norway, and then there's like really bad weather continuity in one scene where it just stops raining for a second, and then it's downpouring the next second in the same scene. That's like, okay. Planting 3 teeth in someone else's mouth would never work to actually convince forensics that Liv was Anna. So yeah, like with that work, I don't believe it would. So there's somebody who like fakes their death. They just plant fake teeth at a crime scene, and they're like, all right, this person's dead. But it's like, no, they faked their death. Like, would that really work? I think I call bullshit. I don't believe that. You almost instantly know who not to trust and where it's going. It ends happy, with her reunited with her mom, but the fight getting there was underwhelming. The journey. Uh, Also, if you're planning months in advance to sneak off to Norway, you could at least try picking up a Norwegian for Dummies book. Just saying. Like, she's been planning this trip for a long time, and she never, for 1 second, decides maybe I should learn Norwegian before going here. She just goes there not knowing shit. So yeah, I just was not a fan of this movie. Leave. You can just leave this movie out of your life. It's not worth seeing. Now, last but not least is The Nun 2, the sequel to The Nun from 2018. I saw this movie at the theaters, and let's see what the synopsis is. 1956 France. A priest is violently murdered, and Sister Irene begins to investigate. She once again comes face to face with a powerful evil. As basic as it gets. To me, this is the worst so far in the Conjuring universe, and I'm shocked to see how many people are actually thinking this is like an okay movie, better than the first one. For me, at least the first one, stylistically, cinematically, like the look of the movie, it looked awesome. I couldn't see shit in this movie. This movie was so dark. It is the darkest movie in terms of lighting since like Alien vs. Predator Requiem. It just lacks the atmosphere of the original. It's so story heavy, but I don't give a fuck about the story because you just know where it's going, or you don't care where it's going, even if you don't know. The writing is just poor, predictable, and it's shocking because the same person who wrote this wrote Malignant, which is one of my new favorite movies of like all time. I love Malignant, and her writing this, I was like, maybe there's hope that this will be good. And I think this is the same director as Conjuring 3, which I liked Conjuring 3 also. So I was like, this could be better. There's nowhere to go but up from the first one, which to me was just meh at best. And this one somehow managed to be worse. But I'm kind of in the minority here because this one has a higher rating than the first movie. But to me, it's just worse. It's just jump scare, jump scare, jump scare, no atmosphere, just so story heavy, but I don't give a fuck. So many obvious setups and payoffs. Every jump scare in the movie is like in the trailer. It's 15 minutes longer than the first movie and almost pushes 2 hours. It's almost 2 hours long. And boy, does it feel like it. Now, I do need to watch this movie again in the future because I feel like maybe I'm more down on this movie because of my theater experience. I was in the theater with these like little kids that were walking around the theater yelling at times. Like just like every 3 to 5 minutes, they just yell something. I don't know who brought them there, if they just snuck in, or if their mom was like up in the back or something, just letting them run loose. But they were calling out to someone in the theater like every 5 minutes. They would just yell a name like, "Bye, Felicia!" And then they walk out of the theater. And then a minute later, they come back in, choose a different seat. And then a minute later, be like, "Bye, Felicia!" again, and then walk out of the theater, repeat, rinse and repeat the entire fucking movie almost. Almost the entire movie was that. Just them yelling whoever the fuck brought them there, their name, walking out, walking back in, choose a different seat. And at one point, they chose a seat near me, about wanted to fucking strangle them. So, yeah, that didn't help. So maybe that's why I don't like this movie, but still, like, just really trying to focus on the story. I was just like, I don't care. Like, just jump scare, jump scare, jump scare. Didn't work for me. Again, just so dark. I couldn't see shit. Like, every scene was dark. Daylight, nighttime, didn't matter. Classroom scene, lights weren't on for some fucking reason. Like, they had to let the light outside the classroom, like, illuminate the scene a little bit. Like, turn on the fucking lights in this classroom. Why is everything so dark? The third act packs more action and chase sequences than its predecessor, but it's not as exciting or as scary as it wants to be. It's hard to feel scared when most of the cast is children who you know can't die, won't die, because it's a horror movie, mainstream horror movie especially. If it was an indie film, I'd be a little bit more, expecting maybe these kids will die, but a Hollywood horror movie, get the fuck out of here. It's not happening. And it should, if you're not going to kill the kids, why make them the generic bullies? It's like an all-girls like Catholic school, and they they set up these bully characters who you're like, oh, I can't wait to see them get like tortured or something. I want to see them die. Nope, they get to live. So it's like, why do it? Why make me hate them if you're not gonna torture them? Um, Frenchie has a sort of like love story slowly building with the T-shirt, and I couldn't care less. You know his story. You know how his story will end because it's gonna go back. It's gonna tie into Conjuring 1 where he's possessed and he dies. So I can't get invested in his love story. I don't give a shit. The ends, it the movie ends the same way as the first movie. Should have taken a darker route. The open kill made me laugh when it wasn't supposed to be funny. There's one kill early on that does nothing for the story, so it just felt like a tacked on scene. Like they went back afterwards and shot it, like just to throw it in. It like no one ever brings that person up, and they never find that person's body. So it's like, what was that scene for? You got Marco Beltrami, who did the Scream franchise. He does the score for this movie. Nothing stood out on the music. I don't think he even uses the Nun's theme. The Nun had a cool, ominous theme in the first movie that was used throughout. It's not in this movie. The recap exposition felt so forced. And how did that nun know so much um, about what happened in part one, but not who Sister Irene is or what she even looked like? She's telling the story of part one. The chick she's talking about is right there, but she doesn't know her, doesn't know her name, doesn't recognize her face. Like, you know all this information, but you don't know this. Bullshit. It's convenient. I would have liked to actually see all the priests in the photos who killed themselves in a like montage scene as the open instead. I thought that would have been cooler. I like the story and cast continuity. I like that they continued at least off of the first one, but it just needed a better tie into the Conjuring films. It doesn't really tie it into the other films. It just kind of ends the same way as the first Nun movie. Some cheap post credit scene with there's a stupid post credit scene in this movie with the Warrens where they just pick up a phone and they're like, okay, we're on it. Click. Like, that's supposed to get me like excited for something. It's just like, what is this? This was just so lackluster. I don't get how this is like so much more loved than the other movie. Like, this is a 2.3, which isn't that good, but I think the first one's like a 2. This is the weakest, easily, of the franchise to me. So, there you go. That's the end of my 6 sequel reviews and 2 Norwegian movies. So, let's jump into the horror sequel quiz. 20 questions. Question 1. Which of these horror movie sequels was not directed by the director of the original movie? Evil Dead 2, Hellraiser 2, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, or Phantasm 2? Question 2. In order to convince the producers to make a sequel to Alien, James Cameron wrote the word alien on a chalkboard, then added an S. What did he add next to the chalkboard? What did he add next? Question 3. From which American metal band does the writer of the songs for Queen of the Damned come from? I forget what Queen of the Damned is even a sequel to. I think it's Interview with a Vampire. It's technically a sequel, so yeah, check it out if you haven't seen it. All right, question 4. What is the sequel to Prom Night called? Question 5. What were the researchers hunting for in the sequel to Anaconda? Hint, it's in the title. Question 6. Which horror anthology sequel features a segment called Slumber Party Alien Abduction? Question 7. What is the Lord of the Labyrinth god referred to as in Hellbound, Hellraiser 2? Question 8. The body count continues is the poster tagline for which 80s horror sequel? Question 9. Aside from playing Freddy Krueger in Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, which other role does Robert Englund play in the film? Question 10. There was once a sequel to The Burning in pre-production called The Burning 2, The Legend of Cropsey, but it was canceled when a real-life serial killer called Cropsey was arrested in New York City. True or false? Question 11. How does Alfred Hitchcock's image have a cameo appearance in Psycho 2? Question 12. In Phantasm 2, which horror film director's name is visible on a bag of ashes in the crematorium? Question 13. Halloween 2 director Rick Rosenthal returned to direct which other Halloween sequel? Question 14. Which BAFTA award-winning actress appears in Child's Play 2 as Joanne Simpson? Question 15. Which horror sequel mimicked the poster of the Breakfast Club for its theatrical poster? I'll give you a hint. It's in the 80s. Question 16. At which location do the opening killings in Scream 2 take place? I'll give you a hint. It's the worst in the franchise. That's not really a hint, but whatever. Question 17. Which comedic actor appears as Titus Telesco in I Still Know What You Did Last Summer? Question 18 is, which of the following sequels is not a prequel to the first movie? Insidious 2, Amityville 2, or Ouija, Origin of Evil? Well, I can't speak now. Question 19. Which horror film's French title had to be adjusted as it would have phonetically translated to The Teeth of the Shit? Question 20. What was the proposed title for the sequel to Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, which we never got, but it came out in comic book form, I believe? What was it supposed to be called? And that's the end of the horror sequel quiz. There you go. What is your favorite horror sequel? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on these movies? The Nun 2, Barcelona, BirdBox 2. Let me know in the comments below. How well did you do with that quiz? Check out my, ranking the twos video that I already did. My, top 10 horror sequels better than the original 1 and 2. Curious to check those videos out because I'm sure some of my opinions have changed since. So yeah, I could probably do another video. Top 10 part 2s, all 2s, and not limit myself like I did last time. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Adios.